Okay, so this is my video on the first Silent Hill movie. It's just called Silent Hill. And I'm gonna try not to do like an insane amount of nitpicking for all of the things that are different because the first one is a loose adaptation of the first game. So in Silent Hill the game, you play as Harry, but in this movie, it's Rose that goes to Silent Hill to find Sharon, which she's Sharon now. She's not Cheryl, so that's another thing, I guess. But after that, there's like a whole bunch of other like different things in the movie than there is from the game because it is a loose adaptation. So we will give it free reign to do that. With I am gonna nitpick a little bit about some things, but it's not. It's fine. Everything is fine in this one. So the movie starts off with like Rose and Harry looking for Sharon. I almost said Cheryl. Looking for Sharon. Who is sleepwalks to an edge of a hill and almost falls off, screaming about Silent Hill and stuff, but they find her and it's fine. So the parents are in a little bit of a dispute as to whether or not they're going to bring her to Silent Hill. Harry's like, no, do not. And Rose is like, let's do it. What could be the problem, really? And then so Rose just runs off with Sharon to bring her to Silent Hill, and Harry finds out like the hard way, which is to say that she calls him on the road. So Rose and Sharon are driving and they have to stop at I feel like calling her Sharon makes her sound like an adult ass woman, but she's like 9, so Rose is driving Sharon to Silent Hill. They have to stop for gas, and during the stop, Rose asks Sharon why her drawings that she made turned from like cute little kids drawings to terrifying like the Ring drawings kind of. And Sharon is like, I don't know, who did that? And then freaks out, which causes Sybil Bennett, that's on the other side of the parking lot, to like notice this child screaming. And then Rose goes in to pay, finds out the cards have been cut off by Harry. And while she's in paying, Sybil approaches the car and asks Sharon, like, hey, is everything cool, dude? And Sharon just goes, I don't talk to strangers, and rolls up her window. And Sybil Bennett's like, good girl. But she's still suspicious of Rose. So the cards have been cut off by Harry, and Rose is all like, you're not going to stop us, right? So she goes on, and when she leaves, like, Sybil takes her license plate down, and then they're driving again. So after they've been driving for not very long, Sybil is behind them and turns on her police lights and pulls them over. And when she's approaching the car, Rose notices, oh shit, Silent Hill's like right there. So she like floors it and drives insanely recklessly with her tiny child in the car and makes it to Silent Hill. She crashes through the gate to get to Silent Hill because it's gated off because it's a coal fire place or whatever. And she crashes through it and she's driving and she notices that Sybil is following her again. And then she looks back up in the front window and she sees a little girl like trying to cross the road, so she like turns the wheel real hard and crashes the car with her daughter in it. And then she wakes up and her daughter's gone and she's in Silent Hill and everything's like foggy and scary now. So as she's walking through the fog, the siren goes off, the siren that make the Silent Hill come up. So the siren goes off and the scenery switches to that sweet thing that you hate to see but you love to see it, and she starts walking. She's got like a little lighter on her and she's walking with the lighter and she runs into a trash can that is like so clearly in front of her. And we have come to the first part of most of the movie, which is just Rose running and looking for Sharon. There's so much running in this movie. I mean, obviously there's like a lot of running in games and stuff too, but for a movie it's like the Lord of the Rings of running. So Rose is looking through this chain link fence like maze type area, and she eventually comes upon our first scary of the show, this disemboweled man who's still alive. And then after that, spooky charred babies show up. So the spooky charred babies are supposed to be, I think they're called gray children. So this part is for sure similar because in the game Harry's like, I think, confronted by these gray children, even though they look different and whatever. And then he passes out. And in the movie, Rose passes out. She, like, runs from them. She can't climb fences. And she runs from them and then, like, falls into a diner. And they're, like, coming into the diner. And she just screams and they burn up. I guess that's a way to solve things. And then she passes out. And then she wakes up in the cafe that Harry also wakes up in the game. Okay, so Rose wakes up in the cafe, and then Johnny Cash is playing Ring of Fire. So it's all foggy outside again, and she goes out of the cafe and runs to find Sharon. She makes it to the end of the town and finds that it's just like, woof, straight, it's on the top of a mountain, if the mountain had a plateau, essentially. Like, it's cut off from the rest of everything. And this is also where we meet Dahlia, which is Alessa's mom, which in this movie, she's not a bad guy, so cool. The interaction between Rose and Dahlia is it's a little weird. Not like weird, because it's supposed to be weird at the end of it, but it's just the charisma is weird to me, personally, between the actresses. It's just kind of like, okay. But anyways, Dahlia says some things that I really don't remember, and I didn't write down. I should have. But eventually, Rose is like, I'm looking for my daughter, and she opens the necklace that she has that has a picture of Sharon in it, so she shows it to her, and Dahlia freaks out and is like, mine, 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 and tries to take the necklace, and Rose freaks out similarly and is like, get out of here, crazy woman, breaks free of her grasp and runs is again running. And then we're gonna watch Sean Bean do stuff, because so one of the first least entertaining scenes of the fucking movie, Christopher, I'm calling him Sean Bean. Sean Bean is like, I gotta find my wife, and my daughter. So he goes, assumingly the same way that she goes, to Silent Hill, and like asks a car mechanic guy about like, hey, Silent Hill, do you know where that is, buddy? And the guy's just kind of like, don't go there, town's dead, it's coal fire or something, you can't go there. And Sean Bean's kind of like, no, gotta. So that useless scene is fucking over. I mean, here's the thing. You didn't need Sean Bean for this many fucking scenes. Okay, right. Back to Rose, where the action is actually happening. She's trying to make phone calls to Christopher, Sean Bean, and her fucking cell phone is on a lanyard around her neck, which I find fucking hilarious. Did anybody actually do that back then? I know I did not. In 2006, I think this movie came out. I fucking never saw anybody with their goddamn Nokia on a lanyard. Who did this? So Rose makes it back to her car, and she's like taking the pictures that Sharon made in her car to like try to figure out where she's at, like in the town. And this is when Sybil Bennett shows up and like is like, arrested, you're arrested. But she also talks about how somebody threw a little boy down the well, so she doesn't trust Rose, that Rose didn't throw her daughter down the well, because how does she even know it's your daughter, Rose? And now we're back to another Sean Bean scene. So Sean Bean in this scene has made it to the area where Rose smashed her car through the gates, and there's a bunch of cops and police there. Those are the same thing. There's cops and a detective there. The cop's like, you cannot come here, and Sean Bean's like, but my wife, I'm looking for my wife. And I think he tells like the cop she drives a silver Jeep Liberty or whatever, but they let him in, and he starts talking to the detective, and the detective starts asking him questions like, why is your wife out here, kind of questions. Sean Bean's basically like, oh, let's go look for my wife, right? And the scene ends with like the detective telling Sean Bean that it's fine because one of his like cops are out there and she's really good at what she does, and whatever she's doing, she's probably really protecting his wife and his daughter. And I was like, he never said anything about his daughter being there. Fucking mind cop. And then flash back to the action. Rose and Sybil have made it to the end of the Silent Hill, and Sybil doesn't take off the handcuffs that she arrested Rose with before. Did I say she'd arrested her? She had arrested her. But so she still's like, no, this is fine. Still be arrested in a place where shit's sideways and that's not normal or natural or how I even got here, but let's keep you handcuffed, lady. Then we get, oh boy, another spooky friend comes and he shows up and he's wearing his flesh like a straitjacket. It's fucking top notch. I guess these things were like in, I think, Silent Hill 2. I'm pretty sure they're in one of the games because they looked really familiar to me. And I don't know if they spit the acid like this one does, but like, I was like, hey, you look a lot more familiar than those burnt babies. It's got like, cause you know, like straitjackets be like, right? And then it like twitches around all unnaturally on top of being unnaturally looking. Oh, it's so creepy. I love it. The acid that it spits hits Sybil in the helmet and jacket, so she has to take off her helmet and jacket, and then she shoots it a bunch of times, even though she like seriously, she waited way suspiciously too long for a cop to wait to shoot. Hot take. And then also when she's shooting it, Rose fucking books it and runs away from them. Eventually, you know, keeping with the theme of running. And so she makes it somewhere, Rose does, and she like does the thing where she like steps over the handcuffs, like sits down or whatever. I don't know. It worked for her. She got out. She didn't get out of them, but she's now walking around like this. So good for her. And she is on her way to the Midwich School, which is the place that Sharon drew. So that's where she's going next. And she makes it there after running. And she begins to search the office for things that she can use. Initially, my dumbass was like, what the fuck is she doing? Why wouldn't she just start searching the school for her kid? But she was looking for like a flashlight so she could see in the dark. I'm smart. Back to a Sean Bean scene. We're in this scene of Sean Bean. He is riding along with the detective through Silent Hill. Like the normal Silent Hill, not like the special Silent Hill that Rose and Sybil and Sharon are in. So they ride through it, and the detective is like, I used to live here when I was younger, blah blah blah, coal-fired. Okay? We didn't need a scene for that. We could have been told that other ways. Okay, so then we're back at the action scenes with Rose, who's running again through the school, shouting Sharon, looking for Sharon. And then there's a bunch of dudes that show up. I'm assuming they're dudes. I have no actual idea if they're dudes or not, but I do have an idea. I know from later on in the movie, because I've seen the movie. So these dudes show up with the cutie little canary, and they're like going through the school. I'm not quite sure exactly the reason, but they're going through the school. Rose sees them and runs away again, runs so far away into the school that I'm not even quite sure they were even following her to begin with, but she hauls ass. Like she do, marathon runner Rose. She makes it to the classroom where Alyssa was studying when she was a child. And at this point I had wrote in my notes, I have written in my notes that the audio did like a really like intense like shift. And for me to notice audio on like the first watch of a like movie or anything like that, that's pretty good. Bad. It's pretty bad because it was jarring. It was really jarring. It was like, well, okay, I guess we're done with that emotion real quick. Okay, but in this scene, she finds a handprint on the desk, and it's Alessa's desk. She opens the desk and sees like it's Alessa's stuff. On the desk is like written witch and whatever. And she like sees Alessa, and she starts chasing Alessa, and then ends up chasing her into the girls' bathroom. So Alessa's allegedly hiding behind one of these stalls crying, and Rose is like going through opening the stalls, and then she gets to one that's locked, and she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna kick the door in now. So she like opens the door in some kind of fashion that I don't remember, but I'm assuming it's violent. And she finds this fucking thing that literally, so I watched this movie in 2006. I still remember like seeing this scene, because this, I don't know, it's just, to me, it's horrifying looking, because it kind of looks like real. I don't know, it just looks like a terrible, terrible fate. But it's okay, he deserved it. So in this guy's mouth, there's something that Rose has to pull out. How in fucking God's name I will ever understand how any of these like movie characters or video game characters see something like that, or like see something like, oh, that looks very scary, I have to reach my hand into it, and then just do it. No. I would find a broom and I would start smacking that dude's, I would desecrate this corpse, but I would start smacking him on the side of the face to make his like head like, you know what I'm trying to say. I would not stick my hand in that fucking mouth. Are you kidding me? Disgusting. So anyways, she does, and pulls out like a piece of like, I think it's wood. It's just a chunk of wood, and it's got like hotel on it or something like that. I don't quite remember what it says on it. So after she does that, she tries to leave, and the masked boys are back outside, and she like, oh shit, shuts the door and locks it. I forgot to tell you guys that she got the janitor keys when she found the flashlight, but she did. So she shuts it and she locks it, and she like pushes her body against the door and is like, oh, somebody please help me, because I don't want to get, like, attacked by these masked dudes. It's reasonable. And then the canary is shown freaking out, so the mask boys have to leave, so they pick up the canary and they start running away, and Rose is kind of like, oh, thank fuck. And then the sirens go off, and then we get spooky Silent Hill again. So after the glorious transition, we learned that that guy in the stall is still alive. Oh, his name was Colin. He was wearing a name tag. So he, like, pulls himself out of the stall, but he's still all wrapped up in barbed wire and whatever, and his face does that disgusting tongue thing. And when he touches, like, anything, like, it infects, like, the walls and everything, and just, like, corrupts the rest of the bathroom, essentially. So Rose runs out of there, and she also, while she's running out of there, she sees that these gas mask men are getting eaten alive by creepers. So Rose keeps running, and eventually she gets to this part where I don't really remember what it is, but it's like in the walls or something. I'm not quite sure. But she gets to this part of the building, and across from her, like way over to the right, she sees Alessa scribbling on her desk. And then Rose falls through a window, and then we get to see Pyramid Head. Our boy is here, but what the fuck is our boy doing here? Like, it doesn't make sense. What does he have to do with Rose or Alessa or Sharon or any of this? This is literally like, so this is where I'm like, oh, cool. It's that one that everybody can visually realize, oh, it's a Silent Hill monster, and accept that it's in this movie. But I'm like, why though? He doesn't make sense here. He doesn't make sense in this Silent Hill. Anyways, he comes with the bugs, and then Rose runs away again. So in this scene, we have a crossover scene between a Sean Bean scene and the action scene. Rose is running through this, like, hallway, right? And Sean Bean is with the detective, and they're, like, looking for her in the real world or whatever. And Sean Bean is like, I sense Rose is here. I mean, he doesn't say that so much, but he's like, I sense she's here. And he's all like, she was here. And the detective is like, nah, man, she was not here. Your wife left you. Get over it. So back to the action scene. Rose is, like, crying. She, like, lays down and she's crying and she's giving up. She's like, it's done. And like a corpse in the grave, she's just sitting there waiting for these bugs to come devour her. But wait! Sybil's here, and she rescues her really quick-like and puts her in a room thing so they can, like, hide from the bugs. And she's like, hand me the bar thing. She does it, and then they're, like, trapped in, and Sybil's like, the fuck's up, mate? And Rose is like, and then Pyramid Head, our boy, is back. Why? Because he wants to stab at the door, because they're not going the right way, and Pyramid Head is the good guy. So he stabs at the door and almost kills both of them, like, a couple times. Rose is, like, screaming, get down. Sybil is refusing to take a fucking command from a goddamn civilian. I'm sorry, he's Red Pyramid. He's not Pyramid Head. So Red Pyramid makes a little hole for his arm and sticks it right through and is trying to, like, bring the bar up. And Sybil, I guess, oh, I forgot to say that she had already said, like, I only have, like, 3 shots left, or whatever. Oh, last mag. I don't... Okay. She shoots Red Pyramid in the arm a couple times, and then he, like, only backs off because the scary times are over. It's time for fog times again. And then that's when Sybil really fucking loses her shit and starts screaming. So then there's another Sean Bean scene, in which this Sean Bean scene shows us that Chris and the detective leave Silent Hill, having not found Sharon or Rose or Sybil. And then Sean Bean is, like, calling the records office and is like, I need the records for the Silent Hill, the police records for Silent Hill. And the woman on the phone is like, sir, I can't give you those. And he's like, no, I need them. The acting in this movie is very bad. So, I mean, like, I'm doing a stellar job right now, if you ask me. But that was that scene. That was it. All right, so then our women's make it to the Grand Hotel, which is that little hotel piece that Rose pulled from that man's mouth. When they get there, they hear a whole bunch of screaming and yelling, and they come upon Dahlia, and Anna's throwing things at Dahlia, saying that she's like a liar or whatever, just being generally rude. They eventually get her to stop doing it, and then Dahlia leaves or whatever. Then Anna tells them that Christabella keeps everyone safe at the church, essentially. Rose and Sybil learn there are more people, and Rose steals Anna's really long knife for essentially no reason, and we'll get to that. They notice the hotel keys on the floor, and they're like, oh shit, that's like a part of the thing that you took from that man's mouth. Then Sybil opens like the little mail thing for the rooms, and she pulls out a picture that was drawn by Sharon and gives it to Rose, and Rose is all like, what room? And then they say it's room 111. So they're off to room 111, and they bring Anna with them. Then we get another Sean Bean scene, and in this Sean Bean scene we get Chris breaking into the records office. He's looking for the Silent Hill police records that lady said that he couldn't have, and you know what Sean Bean said? Sean Bean said, bitch, watch me. So he gets in the room, and a lot of those boxes look really fucked up. He's really lucky that the Silent Hill box is like A, one box, and B, still intact. So he finds a file on Alessa and like opens it up to see like what's up with that and stuff. And then he finds her school picture, and he's like, oh no, that's Sharon. Or it looks like Sharon, but it can't be Sharon because this woman would be like my age, I guess. Back to the action. So Rose, Sybil, and Anna get up to the floor where room 111 is supposed to be, and then they're like, there is no room 111, and then Anna sees a picture that's in the hallway, and it's of the first burning. Anna tells us that the cult in the town burns witches to prevent apocalypses, apocalypse, or however that the plural would be, and that painting was of the first burning. And Rose is like, the fucking room's behind there. So she takes that knife that she stole from Anna and she cuts open the painting, and voila, a room. But this room is nothing. It's literally just like a hallway to the building right next to that building, because there's like a little opening, and then they jump over that, and as soon as Rose jumps over it, she loses that fucking knife she just stole. It's so dumb. What a useless fucking item. So when they make it to this room, Rose spots Alessa, and she follows Alessa like super fast, so like Sybil and Anna can't keep up with her, and she makes it to this like, it's the sacrificing room basically is what it is, and she does some insane parkour that like, if you're looking for your child, maybe not risk your own fucking life for something that you know is not your child. So she does her parkour over there. She tells Alessa, I'm not gonna hurt her, and Alessa turns around and is just basically like, I'm on fire. So that's cool, I guess. Sybil helps her back over and is like, you're gonna get yourself killed. What the fuck are you doing? And Anna like sees the birds fly out and is like, we have to fucking leave, like the darkness is coming. She doesn't say that. Nobody, I don't even think there's a single curse word in this movie. So the sirens are going off, and they follow Anna all the way to the church, and Anna's like, we'll be safe there, and then like a whole bunch of other people coming running to the church, and Dahlia shows up on the steps and is like, so Dahlia is talking to Rose and Sybil about, don't go in there, they're like wolves in sheep's clothing or whatever, and Anna hits her in the face with a rock, because of course she fucking does. At that point, Sybil like grabs Rose's hand or whatever, so they make it into the church, right? But Anna doesn't. Anna stands there and waits for one last rock throw at Dahlia's face. But Dahlia does something like that, right? And then behind Anna is Red Pyramid. Doesn't make sense, but okay. So Red Pyramid shows up behind Anna and picks her up by the throat, and then rips her clothes off, and then rips her fucking skin off and throws it at the closing goddamn church doors. That, oh my god. It's not funny. That shit's not funny. It's a little funny because Dahlia just said, wolves in sheep's clothing. And then Red Pyramid's like, I'll take off that sheep's clothing. I have a bad sense of humor. That's not funny at all. That poor idiot. So as the doors are closing, the skin is flopping at the doors. Rose and Sybil get sprayed by Anna's blood. And then the people of the church are like, they're witches, burn them. But then Sybil fires a shot into the air to restore order. And Christabella shows up and is like, not really like leave them alone, but kind of leave them alone. And Anna's mom is like, they got my daughter killed or whatever. And Christabella's just there like, nah, it's her fault. We told her not to go outside and she did. Deal. Which is like, yeah, that's true, but I didn't think that was what you were gonna say. So then we do the creepy cult prayer, which blends in to an orphanage of girls praying. And for a second I was like, oh, did this turn into a Madeline video? No, it didn't. It's just a new scene with Sean Bean, a Sean Bean scene. So Sean Bean is just at this orphanage. It's a Catholic orphanage. Catholics are the ones with the nuns, right? So it's a Catholic orphanage, and he's there to ask Sister Margaret. I'm sure her name is Sister Margaret. I'm not even gonna check my fucking notes. They're all Sister Margaret. Sister Marianne Margaret O'Connessy. O'Connessy? So he talks to the sister and is like, basically like, where did my daughter come from? And she was like, I'm not allowed to give you out that much details, even though he straight asked her like, hey, so you found this baby outside of the orphanage one day? And she could have just been like, yeah, we have no idea, that's all we know. But she doesn't. She gives herself away immediately and is like, I'm not supposed to give away any private information. And then Sean Bean assaults the nun just in time for the detective to show up to be like, you're gonna get a breaking and entering and assaulting a nun, Sean Bean? Is that really clever of you? And so the detective takes him away. Oh yeah, but before like the detective takes him away, the nun says, don't let this go any further. Super sus, nun. Like, just don't say anything at all. Like, you're really bad at covering anything up except your sinful elbows. So then like we're still in a Sean Bean scene. The detective tells like Sean Bean like a light history of the town or whatever that I really didn't pay attention to because these are the most boring scenes in the fucking film. So he tells Sean Bean something about the city, like I didn't already fucking know it anyways. And he fucking straight says city boy. That's the only part like I actually heard. I was like, nice. So it's basically like, get out my town, city boy. I don't need you snooping around in my West Virginia ass coal fire farmer home, and you don't need to worry about your wife because she just fucking left you, probably because you're an annoying city boy. That was pretty okay. 10 out of 10. I deserve an Oscar. Okay, back to the action. Christabella and Rose and Sybil are all talking to each other. Rose asks Christabella where her daughter could be, and Christabella is like, well, if you want to ask the demon might know. And so they suit up to go talk to the demon about wherever Rose's child is. But when they're leaving, Christabella picks up Rose's locket, which fell off in like when they first got in the scuffle where they were like, which is there? So Christabella picks it up and she just puts it in her pocket because she's a fucking thief. So they're all leaving the church and getting ready to go. And then the movie hits us with this fucking line that I hate, and I think it's very cringe. But here it is.
Mother is God in the eyes of a child.
Gross. So they go to the Brookhaven Hospital, and Rose has to get to room B151, I think it is. And in order to do that, she has to memorize the map on the wall that gives the different rooms of the hospital, and so she's doing that. Christabella is like talking to her henchmen because they came with them. Her henchmen are the masked men. Sybil is like listening to them. So Sybil interrupts Rose while she's trying to memorize the map, and Sybil's all like, they're gonna kill you or whatever, and Rose is like, knock it off, I have to do this, I have to find my daughter. But that doesn't really derail anything. The thing that derails it is Christabella is like, oh, I should give you back the locket that you dropped. We've been scavengers for far too long, so I almost stole this from you. And she like hands it over and it drops, like dangles, and it opens, and then she sees that like Sharon looks exactly like Alessa, and then she goes like, witch. And then so the masked men are coming after her now. But luckily for Rose, she made a badass friend in Sybil, because Sybil like whips out her baton and starts like kicking all 5 of these dudes' ass at once. Like, I'm pretty sure she fucking murdered one of them at least. And when Rose is in the elevator to go down to go talk to the demon, there's like a little a bar so you can fit into the elevator. Sybil's done kicking their asses, but she pulls out her gun because they're still like, no, we haven't had enough. So she pulls out her gun, and then she goes like this, and she looks at Rose and she says like, find her, and then she pulls the thing down. But it's like, you could have also gone with her. I don't understand the point of this part. Like, she could have literally like had the gun like this and like went into the elevator, right? And then went with Rose. Like, I don't understand this. So then Rose goes down, but there's no more bullets in the gun, and Sybil pulls the trigger at Christabella and nothing happens because there's no more bullets. And then so she just gets her ass beat. Like, honestly, I don't understand how she didn't die. They were beating her with lead pipes and like those noises, ugh. So I thought that was dumb. So when the elevator arrives to its place where it needs to go talk to the devil or the demon, Rose walks out and she starts walking and running and walking and running. She eventually comes into a wall of the nurses. Why are the nurses here? It doesn't make sense. Why is Pyramid Head here? Why are the nurses here? It doesn't go with the thing, because both of those things have symbolism behind them. But okay, they're iconic and hot, I guess. But it's a hospital. Of course there'd be nurses in the hospital. And you know, of course they would look like that for this fucking movie about being a mom and maternity and shit like that. Of course these hot, sexy nurses would be in it. What? Also forgot to mention that Rose gets a flashlight from one of the masked men and says they'll be attracted to the light, but you'll need it to see. So obviously the nurses are attracted to the light and they do all the things that the nurses do in the games, but it just doesn't make sense to the context of the movie. Like their symbolism, it doesn't work. Anyways, Rose turns off the flashlight and she eases her way around them. But one of them goes kind of rogue and attacks, and then it slits the throat of another one, and then they're all attacking. So Rose just drops down and crawls right out of there and then turns around and puts the flashlight at them, so they all like moths to a light. So then she runs into the room down the hall and we're greeted with a bright white light, and then boom, Alessa's origin story. So it's revealed to us that Alessa is a child born out of wedlock, that she was an outcast in her school because she goes to school with a bunch of fucking cultist ass psychos and they thought she was a witch. Also that she was molested by that janitor from earlier, which makes sense. This is okay, I'm going to talk about Colin now. So that makes sense. Like, that creature I don't think is in any of the Silent Hill games. Like, I'm sure you'll tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think they fucking nailed it on this, because they have him, like, in a horrible, awful pose, which, like, yes, you deserve that forever, for eternity. That should be your life. I mean, that's just how I feel. I'm not asking for your opinion. And then on top of that, whenever he comes to life in like the other world, the Silent Hill spooky space, things that he touches with his hand become like corrupted or damaged or something like that. That makes sense. Like that, yeah, there's symbolism in how that monster functions in the world, I think. Good job! You made a new one that makes sense to the fucking theme of the goddamn series. You did it. So then after that little short scene, it's shown that Christabella is like, Dahlia, we can just name the dad or whatever, and we can also we can cleanse the sin and just bring her to this place. So Dahlia does, thinking like, oh, well, this will save us or whatever. And then Christabella just takes Alessa and is like, you don't have to come any further. We punish the sin, not the sinner. And it's like, yeah, this cult is just the worst. So then it like shows that the cult roasted Alessa alive, and Dahlia tried to get help, but it was already too late. And so Alessa was transported to the hospital, but she was like 100% burnt all over her body, and she's still alive and living. It also tells us that the amount of hate that Alessa felt transformed her and the town and like gave her powers. Like, that's who Dark Alessa is. Dark Alessa is like, hey, need help, bro? And burnt up Alessa is like, yes. And then after that, like, little horrible film, Rose notices that she's in a hospital room, which is Alessa's hospital room. And Alessa is like, it's not a very well-kept hospital room. Honestly, it looks like an infection zone. There's a nurse in there, and she is, like, refusing to show her face. And this nurse, I think, is supposed to be Lisa Garland from the games, who's, like, was used by the Order or whatever. And, like, so Dark Alessa shows up and explains that the good part of Alessa is Sharon, and gives like a proposal to Rose, like, all Alessa wants is revenge, and I can't go into the church to get the revenge, so if you could just go in the church for me, that would be great. And then Rose is like, sure, I guess. And then Rose and Dark Alessa fuse, but I'm like confused by this, because if she can't go in the church, how would this help her go in the church? I don't know. Seems like you would still be forbidden from the church if you were possessed, or possessed in any kind of way. The evil that you say, no thank you. I don't know. It's just a me thing. And then after that, we get to see Lisa Garland's face, which is all terrifying. It's not all terrifying. Her eyes are just really marbled and weird. and bleeding. Then we get a shot of Dahlia's house because Sharon has been staying with Dahlia, and Christabella found out, and so she is stealing Sharon so she can burn Sharon because it's a cult and they're bad. So then we get another Sean Bean scene. In this scene, Sean Bean is being escorted by the cops to out the fuck of town because this detective has had enough of his bullshit. And then there's like this weird, gross power struggle about who's gonna shut Sean Bean's door, and it's really fucking awkward and bad. It's just so bad, and I hate it. So then back to the action. It's time to burn some witches. We've got Sybil up there on the upper ladder thing, and we're gonna burn her because she's a witch, because Christabella says so. So then they burn Sybil, and it's really gross and sad, and I always hated this scene because I was always like, lame. Because I grew to like Sybil. So then they set up Sharon to be burned, but then Rose comes in and is like hitting them with some hard truths about how child isn't evil and they're all crazy and they're all already dead and they just need to accept it. You know, that kind of stuff. And Christabella's like, burn her, and Rose is like, no. Rose gets punched in the face like twice and is still like throwing dudes off her like, no, you will listen to my words. Y'all fucked. And then she eventually gets up to Christabella and says, God isn't here. So Christabella fucking stabs her in this part here. That sucks. So Christabella drops the knife and is like instantly trying to defend her actions, but the blood on the knife drops onto the wood, and then rip y'all. Guess who's here? It's Dark Alyssa and Alyssa for revenge. Not immediately, but like Rose walks up to like the little circular thing, the fire pit where they just burned Sybil. I'm smart. So then she starts bleeding into it, and then it just opens up the gateway to wherever Alessa is. So then basically Rose gets better, and Alessa shows up with her hospital bed and its barbed wire tentacles, and she starts grabbing cultists with her barbed wire tentacles and splitting them in half and crushing them. It's really gross, and Christabella dies by getting sliced in half from like under the skirt area. I didn't really care for that. I thought that was really gross and not great. Not the splitting in half part, that's fine, but the manner in which, ugh. Rose goes up to untie Sharon from the place where she was going to get burnt alive, and she just like holds Sharon and she's like, just close your eyes like it's a bad dream. And Dark Alyssa is climbing the ladder to get up to them, and she makes it up to them, then looks at Sharon in the eyeballs, and Sharon gets like scared and like passes out. And I think they fused. I'm pretty sure they're like, finished, now we're all one person again. So then they take a quick nap while all the carnage is happening, and then when they wake up they go to leave, and when they're leaving there is no more carnage anywhere. It's just a regular church, and Dahlia's on like the floor, and Dahlia's like, why didn't my daughter get revenge on me too? And Rose says the cringe line,
Mother is God in the eyes of a child.
great. So then Sharon and Rose get in the car, and Rose drives them home, and everything's fine. It's all just really foggy out, and it's fine. And then Rose calls Chris and is like, hey, we're on our way home, everything's fine. But then we're at a Sean Bean scene. In this Sean Bean scene, he tries to answer the phone, but it's like really all gargly and staticky like it was before. And that's called foreshadowing. So then Rose and Sharon get home, and when they get home, everything's still foggy out. And they walk in the front door, and like Chris is totally asleep on the couch in the other shot we just saw, and they don't see him on the couch, and they sit on the chairs in the living room, but Sean Bean's not there. On the Sean Bean side of things, he wakes up from his nap and he sees the front doors open, so he goes outside to see if like his wife's car is there, and it's not there. And then so he just shuts the door, and that's how the movie ends. Ambiguous. Are they dead? Did they die before they even got there? Did they die when they got there? Are they just stuck on that plane and they have to figure out how to get out? Is Sharon Alessa like just prolonging the time in this plane so she can have more time with her mom, because she is now both Sharon and Alessa never got extra time with her mom because she's, you know, burnt alive? Who knows? It's so good that we can all just have our little theories about what happened at the end, and we don't have to worry about a sequel. Shit. So what else is different? What else is different in this movie from the game? Well, obviously there's like, you know, Dahlia is the main bad guy in the actual game. But since the director was going for like a very mom heavy kind of thing, he couldn't really have like one of the moms in the show be like the murderer of the child, because then that would kind of ruin the whole cringe line that was used twice throughout the movie. So obviously just make up a Cristobal and she can be the baddie. I'm trying to remember that this is the loose adaptation one. And it actually means loose adaptation. And I think it does a pretty good job about trying to get the weird, eerie aspects of Silent Hill in, and it does a pretty good job with symbolism too. Even if some of it is literally just shoved down our throats, it does pretty well in those aspects. I think that we could have done a lot better without the Sean Bean scenes. So when I was doing light research on the sequel, because I was like, I'm pretty sure they retconned a bunch of things from the first movie, but I have to like double check to make sure I'm not just losing my fucking mind, because highly likely. While I was doing light research on that thing, I came across like trivia about this one, about Silent Hill, and apparently, I'm not sure if this is true, but I read that the director wanted like a primarily female cast to drive home like the whole maternity kind of symbolism to it, but the studio said no, you have to have men in your film. So that's why we got Sean Bean and the detective guy. You don't need those scenes. Like, you can still have Sean Bean, just have him in the beginning and he's like, okay, I'll be back from my business trip in like a week, and Rose is like, I'm gonna take this time to bring Sharon to Silent Hill, and then she does, but then he cuts his trips short because he's worried because they don't answer the phone, and every time they give him a voicemail, it's all staticky stuff. So he can come home early even, and it would still be like they could still do the whole ending part too, because they could have him going into the house to check to see if they're there. At the same time, they walk in behind him, and then it's like, whoa, they're still in Silent Hill. So I mean, I'm just saying, like, you'd like probably 45 minutes, that might be an exaggeration, but 45 minutes extra of scenes we didn't need, that did nothing, because honestly, Sean Bean was garbage in this movie. I'm sorry, I love Sean Bean, but it just kind of seems like he knew his character was gonna live in this film, so he just kind of phoned it in. Like, I don't even have to make people care about my character, he fucking lives, who gives a shit. My other two like big points of contention are the fact that Pyramid Head and the bobblehead nurses are in it, because they don't make sense to like what the movie is trying to deal with, because both of those things have to deal with Silent Hill 2. Like, they're both in Silent Hill 2 and represent shit to James's story that has literally nothing to do with motherhood. Alessa, Sharon, Sybil's, their story, Cristobala's, Dahlia's, has nothing to do with what Pyramid Head and the bobblehead nurses like are. I don't know. You can disagree with me in the comments and I won't listen to you, but you can. The other monsters in this movie I thought were pretty good. I thought the addition of Colin and creating such a fucking monster and have it actually have like symbolism and whatever to its otherworld actions, I guess. I thought the gross flesh straight jacket guys were really gross. I really didn't give a shit about the gray children. I really could have just done without them because they looked like, I don't know, they looked dumb. I don't like them. But overall, I thought it was okay. It was an okay loose adaptation of a video game. It's probably one of the better video game movies that are out there that I've seen so far. I don't know, but I'm not mad at it. I liked it. It was okay. It was fine. It was a good. I mean, it was 2.5 hours long. It could have been shorter. I think we know where I want to cut the fat in that movie. Why is the lighting like this? Because I'm in Silent Hill. Oh well, it's too fucking late now. This whole goddamn video, I look like I'm in a spaghetti western.